devil dropped the gavel on that little coastal town.
Hi again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Trial Watchers podcast. This is a podcast about true crime fans for true crime fans. I'm your co-host, Mike Pachenik, and joining me is my lovely co-host, Melissa Gordon. Mel, how are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing well. Great to see you. A few housekeeping items again. If you're catching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe to our page and go to our website, trialwatchers.com. There you can buy our book and get access to our Patreon page and all of our great true crime content. Again, that's trialwatchers.com. Okay, guys, we got a great episode for you today. As you know, the South Carolina Supreme Court is waiting on written arguments from both sides in the Alec Murdaugh case to determine whether he will get a new trial. Melissa, you attended that first trial and you met one of our guests. By day, Shana Hirsch is an English professor at a college in Beaufort County. And by nights and weekends, for more than a year or so, she has researched and co-wrote the book, The Long Road to Justice, with our other guest today, Amie Williams, who by day is a payroll specialist for a municipality in the Lowcountry. She was also juror number 864 in the Alex Murdaugh double murder trial. Their book is available now on pre-order. You can go to www.thelongroadtojustice.com. Ladies, great to see you.
Hi, Mike. Hi, Melissa. Hi, Amie.
Full disclosure, I met Shana and Amie on a lunch date when we were doing the book tour with Becky. And we had lunch and I was like, hey, do you need a photographer or anything? And they were like, yeah, that'd be great. I think that was the beginning stages maybe. So inevitably I became the photographer, web person, a little bit of a sounding board. We're going to start with Amie. Amie, Shana watched gavel to gavel trial coverage. You watched it from the jury box. You write about watching the trial back on video. Why?
Well, just so everyone could understand that most of the things that you hear me talking about in the book, I didn't notice it when it was going on, of course, because I was in the jury room. I didn't see any of it or hear any of it, but obviously I watched it afterwards. And so that way I would be able to get the full effect of everything that had happened while I wasn't in the courtroom.
Makes sense. Shana, did Amie watching the trial on video help you in your process of writing?
Yeah, it did, because she remembered little things here and there that she was like, oh, I didn't even think about that. I forgot that even happened. So it widened the breadth of our discussion. And then, like Amie said, the things that she didn't even know happened were things that were kind of just naturally appearing in the writing process. So it was good for her to actually see that, or because and it's like the little things like Judge Newman saying, bring the jury. Like she didn't even know that that was even a thing, right?
Right. Makes sense.
Or any of the pre-court, the pre-trial nonsense that would happen inevitably every morning.
Every day.
So Amie, that's quite a jury to have had sat on and to have to, make a tough decision like you did. I know what it's like to get a jury summons personally. I dreaded getting one in the mail. I think I've gotten one twice in 6 months here in Atlanta where I'm based. And thankfully didn't actually have to sit. There's like 1 million plus people in Fulton County, Georgia, and I keep getting called. I don't understand how that works. But you write in the book that you had gotten out of jury duty in a different case. What was that? And then what were you thinking about, the Murdaugh case and hoping that you would not get called for that one?
Well, this was the first time I was ever called in my whole entire adult life, believe that or not. And this was a sexual harassment case. Did not know it until I got there, of course. And I was raped when I was in college, when I first started college. And, I'm a domestic violence survivor. So I was not sure if I was going to be able to sit through that. And so when I explained that to the judge, she was like, do you feel like you would be able to be fair and impartial? And I told her, I would love to be, but I can't say that I would because it could trigger things for me. And, you know, I might not think of what's actually happening with this case, but think about myself. So she was like, well, in that case, she would have to dismiss me. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
And when you knew the Murdaugh case was kind of on the horizon, you were hoping that you wouldn't be called for that one. Like, was that?
Yeah, I wasn't even. Yes, correct. I wasn't even thinking about that until I saw the summons. I still didn't know what it was because they didn't tell. Of course, you don't know what case it is.
Yeah.
They kind of went around and around in a circle on the paperwork, but yeah, I was in shock.
Wow. Shana, many people know the Lord's Prayer, but you had a light moment in the book about the Juror's Prayer. Can you remember a few verses for us?
I just remember something about being deaf in one ear and brain surgery. I thought that was a really cute poem that looked at all of the different reasons that people want to try to get out of jury duty, like the just ridiculous things that they'll say to get out of it. Because it's not something that people, you know, celebrate with the happy dance when they get a jury summons.
I bet. Amie, what were you paid to be a juror?
They paid us $20 a day.
Wow. And how did your employer react about the jury duty?
So they were not happy just because they didn't want me to be gone. Because at first we thought it was going to be for 3 weeks. And like, oh, that's just too long. And we just hope you don't get it. And then when they heard that I did, because they were listening live, they were like, oh my God. And then they kept asking me if I was okay. I had a coworker who was actually very concerned for me. She wanted to know if I felt like I would be safe or did I feel safe and, you know, stuff like that. And I told her, nothing is fine. You know, I'm protected. I have angels around me all the time. I'm not worried.
Yeah. So gosh, $20 a day? And
$20 a day.
Gosh, so you just go without income, I guess, if you're a juror.
If you're not, because some employers don't pay, South Carolina doesn't force them to pay. So there were a lot of jurors that were not being paid. Thankfully, mine did. So
Wow.
I was grateful for that, but I felt really bad for those who did not, because, you know, they're using their paid time off or, you know, vacation leave or whatever so that they could be paid during this time. Yes.
Wow. How did you reward? That's really a kind thing that your employer did. What did you say? I mean, how did you reward them for that?
I came back to work.
No.
I love them. I love them very much. And, you know, it to help them and to also help me, most nights when I came home, I had to do some work. So there were some things that I could do to help them out, and it helped flush everything out of my mind. And I was able, so I could lay down and sleep. So that was one way for me to try and help and to say thank you, you know, for going through this with me. They went through it with me, so to speak.
Right. Shana, in the book, you made a point to say the two of you didn't start on the book until, when was it? Late July?
Early July, yeah.
Okay, early July. So I guess that's pretty important, I would imagine. Why so?
Well, I felt like I needed to emphasize that for a couple of reasons. First of all, because there was so much emphasis put on Becky and when she started her book, so many false allegations about that. And I also didn't want anybody to think that Amie was sitting in the jury box, you know, hearing the cash register and seeing dollar signs in her eyes, because that wasn't at all what prompted her decision to write the book. But I wanted to try to cut the trolls off at the pass any way I possibly could.
Makes sense.
And just recently I heard them say, well, somebody didn't start their book until long after the trial, unlike some people. evidently it wasn't us that they were talking about, but it was somebody else. And it's like, why is that even important? But, so I really wanted to get on the record as to this is the timeline when we started it.
Yeah.
Avoid the white hot scrutiny of the trolls. Which is,
exactly.
Yeah.
Poor Melissa, Neil, and Becky did not, unfortunately. Let's switch gears and talk about the jury selection process itself. Amie, you write that Alec Murdaugh had a big hand in picking the jury and striking the jury, and that made you uncomfortable. How so?
Well, it was just the fact that when Creighton Waters said, present this juror, and when the clerk of court asked the defense, what say ye? It was, Dick looked over and was obviously asking him, what do you think? Do you want her? And he was shaking his head saying yes, but then he looked up at me and he smiled. That part I didn't like. I had no idea whether he was guilty or not, but I like the fact that he was smiling at me. So that was the part
kind of goosebumps, I imagine. That's little creepy.
Yeah, I was thinking, I don't know what you're thinking with the smile, but it's not going to happen, whatever you're thinking.
Of course, not every day that a lawyer is the defendant. So I suppose because of his experience being in a trial court, they were even more than the average defendant giving feedback to their attorneys in real time during the jury selection process. Mm-hmm. The book is very much a timeline of the trial, the impact on you, Amie, the aftermath. And you highlighted what you thought was the combative nature and caustic tone of one Dick Harpootlian. Why, Shana, is that important in this book?
Well, I kind of felt like when we started talking about witnesses and testimony and stuff, it kind of evolved to where we ended up talking about the cross-examination and the way that the witnesses handled themselves during cross-examination really lent a lot to their credibility, considering that he put them through so much. I think about Dr. Reimer and just Kenny Kinsey and all of that. It's awful to think like the things that they had to withstand. I mean, it was just brutal, and it just lent more to their credibility, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, and you write in The Long Road to Justice that Dick didn't win any points with the jurors, Amie, and you highlight specifically an exchange that he had with a South Carolina law enforcement division agent on the stand. What did he call her, and how did that go over in the jury box?
Well, I mean, I think when he commented on her title as special agent, he asked her, what is a special agent or something like that? And it was
what's so special about it?
Was kind of, what's so special about a special agent? And I'm like, what? I mean, even FBIs have the same designation, some of them as special agents. So what do you mean by that? So you didn't really win any points with us. Well, at least not with me anyway, because, I can't speak for everyone else, but I don't think that it went over too well. And it was totally unnecessary, I think. And what did it have to do with the case? Really,
it was a personal dig.
Yeah, I agree. I remember being taken aback by that and thought, I felt like that was unnecessary. Yeah.
If that was a dad joke, it did not go over like a dad joke. I mean, it was just bad.
Yeah. Well, Amie, you highlighted key witnesses in the book, people who were on Alex Murdaugh's payroll. Shelley Smith, the caretaker for Alex's mom, and Blanca, the housekeeper. How did they impact your decision to vote guilty?
Well, it was very obvious that these two women loved that family. They really loved that family. And it was hard for them to be on the stand. They were torn, you could tell, because of their love for this family, but they had to tell the truth. They couldn't just, And with Miss Shelley, you could see the fear and the nervousness in her. And but she wanted to just be honest. And that was genuine. There was no way that, and what would she have gained? What would Blanca have gained by lying? I don't see where they would have gained anything by lying. So their testimony was very impactful to me. Very much so.
Makes sense. Shana, on the law enforcement forensics side, you highlighted Kenny Kinsey, who I just love. Why was he important, and how did you get him to even write the foreword to the book? Like, what did he say? How did that come up?
Well, I just fell in love with him because it was like, and it's funny because everything that I loved about Kenny Kinsey was what Amie loved about him when we started talking about it. And I was like, he made me actually see everything that happened on June 7th, 2021 in my head, like a little movie, like a silent movie as it was unfolding. So I know that if I were her, that would have just made all the difference in the world. It kind of would have solidified everything for me. And I didn't even tell Amie I was going to ask him. I just thought, you know what? It's the middle of the night. I've got insomnia. What do I have to lose? Nothing to lose except for him to tell me no. And now he's the reason I have absolutely no shame, and I will ask anybody anything if I needed it for the book as well. So yeah, I just emailed him and told him that I was writing this book for Amie, and he said, I would be happy to do anything for Miss Amie. I'm so appreciative of her and her service. And it was so sweet. And I hope one day I get to meet him because I talked to him a lot during the process, but
he is one of the kindest human beings I think I spoke to in Walterboro.
Yeah.
One of the kindest human beings, and humble.
I really loved like watching a lot of his. I knew that he would probably be amenable to it. Just like watching his interviews and knowing how appreciative of the jury that he was. And he's like, I didn't do anything. The jury did it all, you know? So.
Yeah, he was really humble.
Wow. Amie, in the book,
Yes.
you discussed how difficult it was, going to Moselle with the jury to see the crime scene in person. Why was that hard to put into words for you after having experienced that?
Well, because, there was a heaviness there, and it was kind of like I think that day was kind of cold and dreary a little bit, but it was a little hard. I can't find the right words for it, but to me on the picture, the bodies looked further apart. And once I got there and I stood right where the crime scene was, it was like, oh my God, they were actually closer to each other than I thought. And it was kind of sad. And, just walking around and looking at everything, and to just for someone to see and hear everything, how Kenny Kinsey was explaining how everything was done, Dr. Raymer, how everything was being done. And it was just so sad and heartbreaking walking around the property.
I can't even imagine. Shana, as you're crafting the words to describe that heaviness that Amie just described there, did you feel like you were there, and did you ever visit the property yourself?
I only ever got as far as the mailbox because the trespassing signs were up. So I didn't get to go there. But when I was writing the chapter, Amie and I, of course, talked a lot about it. And I just on repeat watched the video that was on YouTube of it, the pool video of what the jury saw, and then looked at a lot of still photos, and then just kind of thought to myself, like, how would I feel if I were Amie and I were seeing that? It's just to know that two people were killed in the place where they should have felt the safest by someone who should have made them feel so safe was just an incredible thing. And Valerie Bauerlein shared her pool notes with me. So that was really helpful to kind of get her insight and to weave it into the story as well.
Kind of lady.
Yes.
maybe. Yeah.
Well, ladies, thank you so much for making time to talk to us. Stick around because we're going to bring you back for a second full episode of the Trial Watchers podcast. We're going to talk about Alex's testimony. We're going to talk about the verdict, what it was like in that jury room, and hear directly from Amie Williams and Shana Hirsch, who wrote this book together, The Long Road to Justice. Go to www.thelongroadtojustice.com to get your copy of it. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that the proceeds from the book are going to be going to build Sanctuary House. This is to help domestic violence survivors. Amie, it's a very noble cause. Do you want to say anything about Sanctuary House quickly?
Yes, I started the nonprofit in December of 2022, not knowing that I would end up on the trial. And this was a vision that was given to me when I was a little girl, not understanding what it meant. I won't get into how the vision was or anything, but I never realized that I was going to be one of those hurting women that I was shown in the vision. And so when all of it came together, I just took a leap of faith and started the nonprofit. And now we're just trying to get the funding and the house and everything, the land, everything that we need in order to take care of the women that need this help.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we're so glad that you're doing that, and glad to put out there that the proceeds from the Long Road to Justice are going to go and help make your vision become a reality there. So again, stick around. We're going to bring you back for a second episode here, and don't forget, go to trialwatchers.com to join our Patreon group. You can find our book there, Trial Watchers, of which Shana is a co-author. She has a chapter. The best chapter in the book, if you hear her tell people when we're meeting them out in public. And we will see you next time. So stick around.
Devil dropped the gavel on that little coastal town.